Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to wait just a minute to let others join, and then we'll begin today's conversation. And for those of you who are just joining us, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to wait just a minute to let others join us, and then we'll begin today's conversation. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to those who are just joining us. We're going to wait just a minute to let others join, and then we're going to begin today's conversation. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to wait just a minute to let others join, and then we'll begin today's conversation. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to give everyone just a minute to let others join, and then we will begin today's conversation. Good afternoon, and welcome to the latest installment of Homeroom with Education Leaders. Today's discussion is focused on artificial intelligence as a tool for success. My name is Maureen Stover, and I serve as Deputy Director of the K-12 team here at the Hunt Institute. For those unfamiliar with the Institute, we were founded by four-term North Carolina Governor Jim Hunt and serve as a resource for policymakers on education issues from prenatal through higher education. We offer in-person and virtual convenings, conduct research, and offer forms of technical assistance for states across the country. Before we jump in, I want to provide a brief logistical overview of how we will spend our time together this afternoon. We'll start the session with about a 30-minute moderated discussion with our panelists, and then we'll pivot to a question and answer with the audience. If you have any questions throughout the discussion, please feel free to submit them using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll do our best to address them during the discussion. We will record this conversation and in the next few days post it to our YouTube channel. We also encourage you to join us on Twitter, where you can participate in the conversation by using the hashtag #EdHomeroom. So let's jump in. We are so appreciative of the panelists who are joining us here today. In today's rapidly evolving educational landscape, artificial intelligence, which is also known as AI, stands at the forefront of innovation, promising transformative impacts on student learning and outcomes. AI technologies such as machine learning and adaptive learning systems are revolutionizing how students learn by personalizing educational experiences, supporting diverse learning needs, and enhancing student engagement. In recognition of this importance, today's conversation will feature leading experts who will discuss these innovations and explore the profound impact of AI on student outcomes, offering a comprehensive understanding of how AI can be effectively integrated into the educational landscape to foster success and equity. To that end, I am pleased to introduce our speakers today. Dr. James Lester is a Goodnight Distinguished Professor in AI and Machine Learning at North Carolina State University. Diana Hughes is the Vice President of Product Innovation in AI at Age of Learning. And Dr. Marvin Conley is the Superintendent of Cumberland County Schools. Thank you all so much for joining us. And with that, we'll jump right in. Dr. Lester, AI has been the buzz of much of 2024, but it is not a new thing. Can you speak a little to the history of machine learning and how it has evolved over the years and the role it now plays in transforming the educational landscape?
Sure. And thanks so much for having me. I'm really delighted to join everyone here today. As you say, AI is not new. AI launched in the 1950s, long before probably many people on this call were born. Um, it was a little bit of a slow start, and that was unexpected for many of the founders. So many founders expected that the problem of AI, how we can make machines think, solve problems, learn, see, understand language. They thought this would be a solved problem in maybe like 4 or 5 years, and this was in the mid 1950s. It turned out it took a little longer than that to get the wheels turning. In 1985, when I was an undergraduate student, I wrote my first machine learning program. And in fact, it was a really, really significant effort for just one person to do this. And it was using a language called Prolog, which is a very rarely used language today. Now, fast forward to now, and machine learning and AI work very, very differently. We experienced a revolution a few years ago that introduced a particular kind of model called a transformer that made what are called large language models like ChatGPT possible. And what that made sort of ubiquitous in our day-to-day lives now was the possibility of interrogating an AI to get answers to questions, to solve very, very challenging problems, and all with a level of performance that I think nobody in the last, say, 10 years, other than, and that's in contrast to the founders of our field in the 1950s, thought would be possible. So now we have computational models that can perform on tests that at levels that nobody could possibly have imagined, and to engage in fluid conversation. Long ago passing the what's called the Turing test that nobody would have expected. Being able to generate language, which is actually my technical background, is in natural language generation. I'll say I spent 8 years working on my dissertation a long time ago, and that system produced paragraphs of text. That was considered a really big deal at the time. And it was moderately fluid and moderately coherent, but 8 years worth of effort, and now a kindergartner could do this, and so that's a wonderful thing, not a step backward. So the kind of net of all this is that now we have these technologies that are going to profoundly affect every sector of society, and that's going to be all the way from healthcare to business to defense and national security, and then the area that most of us on this call care most deeply about, education. So it's really making it possible to kind of re-envision how education will happen. What does it mean to deliver a quality education to K-12 students today? And so while we're going to be talking about, I imagine, some of the challenges here, we're also going to be seeing opportunities for really thinking deeply about how we can educate our students to live in this very exciting world that they and we too are moving into.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lester. Diana, AI has the potential to create a unique experience for students. Can you speak to the personalized learning aspects and potential of AI at Age of Learning and how it is being utilized to tailor educational experiences to individual students' needs?
Sure. So first, I want to say the philosophy that we're adopting when it comes to this technology at Age of Learning is that we want to scale approaches that already work. So we're not, reinventing the wheel here. It's what already works when you're working with a student, and then how do we do that for more students? So a few things we have in the works that I think are really exciting. One, and this feels small, but it's not. That's using a large language model to make sure that we're pronouncing a student's name correctly. So in ABC Mouse, when a student comes to the program, they're greeted by ABC, the mouse character. And so when a parent signs their child up for the program, we'll generate 2 or 3 versions of the name and have the parent tell us that this is the right one. Which we think is really important. We want kids to feel welcome. We want to start building their learner identity from the very beginning, and getting their name right is a small but really powerful way to do that. Another thing that we're looking at a lot is in our personalized learning programs. So my Math Academy, my Reading Academy Espanol. We have this stacked sort of escalating wrong answer feedback system. So when a student gets a question wrong, we sort of escalate how much help we give them if they're getting the answer wrong more than once. But that's currently sort of a locked system. So we've pre-baked all of the ways that we adjust that scaffolding. And what we're looking at now with something like Gen AI is being able to really tailor that feedback to the student. So where right now we might suggest, hey, remember that strategy we taught you before? Try that. That's a pretty useful piece of feedback, and what we see from our research is it works pretty well most of the time. But if we knew that a student's first language wasn't English, it might make sense to actually try switching to their home language and see if maybe a language barrier is actually the problem. Or maybe we can pick up on, oh, you have a specific misconception here. There's like a thing you're doing wrong when you forget to carry the one in an addition or something like that. And if we can pick up on that specific misconception, then instead of saying generically, here's a strategy, we could say, hey, here's the thing you're doing. Remember, you need to carry the one when these conditions are true. So getting much more specific with the kind of feedback we give the student. So that's pretty exciting. And then thinking more broadly about the educational ecosystem, we think there's really a lot of potential in delivering more personalized insights to teachers. So if you have a system that has a lot of data about what students know and don't know, and what they're ready to learn and what they're struggling with, why not share that information with the teacher, but also help her with pattern matching? Hey, you have 6 students who are all struggling with this thing. You might want to pull them together into a small group, do this kind of an activity with them. So really making data actionable for a teacher in a way that saves them time and lets them focus on what they really need to be focusing on, which is working with students and kind of that affective aspect of teaching. So we see a lot of potential in the tool, provided that you're using it carefully and that you're scaling approaches that really work.
Thanks so much, Diana. And Dr. Conley, Diana just gave us a really great overview of how AI can be used academically. But in Cumberland County Schools, you recently unveiled a new mental health chatbot that's geared toward helping middle and high school students. Can you speak to the program and how it is supporting students in the county?
Sure. We are very excited here in Cumberland to utilize the opportunities that AI provides to support students academically, emotionally, mentally, and behaviorally, embracing the technology. So we recently launched an app called Alongside in February 2024. It is a mental health app. It provides immediate mental health support to students. Students use a chatbot named Kiwi, Kiwi, and get personalized support developed by a team of doctoral clinicians. Students can also journal, watch helpful videos, set goals for improvement, track their mood, access 24/7 resources, and send a message to their counselors or school support team, indicating they need support or help. Parent permission is required, and the service is available in multiple languages. And if students raise severe issues with the chatbot, such as suicide ideation or child abuse, an alert is sent via email and text to our student services administrators, to the child's principal, and the assistant principal. The school staff contacts the parent for additional support. Now, who is able to utilize the app? Currently in Cumberland County, only secondary students are enrolled in the program to be able to utilize the Alongside app. When the students use Alongside, it's available 24/7. They can access the app from their school device or their personal device, cell phone or laptop. Alongside is an ounce of prevention that works alongside parents and staff, pardon the pun. It does not replace, let me say that again, it does not replace the human connection or the need to speak with a counselor or a social worker. Students may talk to the llama, it's a llama that we have in the chat box, anytime they are upset, worried, or looking for reliable information about an issue. Teachers may create staff accounts that allow them to see the app from the student's perspective. They may use the content for whole group discussion and bell ringers in their classroom. Most importantly, teachers are crucial in creating an environment that lets students know it is okay to ask. It is okay to talk to the llama. Now, most of the activities take 3 to 5 minutes to complete. Parents can go to our website for more information, or a link to the website alongside information is in the chat as well. And you can access that on our Cumberland County Schools website. And you'll also find a frequently asked questions document and parent permission forms. We feel like this is a step in the right direction, providing multiple ways and avenues to support children. Again, not only academically and behaviorally, but emotionally and mentally as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Conley. I would love to ask a follow-up question for you all. And as I do not see, as I do that, as a reminder, please submit your questions for our panelists into the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. What do you say to folks who are hesitant about utilizing AI in classrooms or their schools? And how do you navigate those conversations to address their concerns and promote the benefits of AI in education? And Dr. Lester, we'll start with you.
It's a very interesting question. And I feel like that the sort of challenges that this has posed over the last maybe 18 months, 2 years have changed. So early on, there was a good bit of hesitation, I think, on the part of everybody to have AI in the classroom. So there were tech concerns. There were some, I think, really important and still significant ethical concerns that we have to confront head on if we're going to be unleashing these technologies in the classroom. But these have changed over time. So I think that if we consider like maybe early, say a year ago, there was a very significant concern about kids cheating. I still hear this frequently, both for K-12 and for college level. But I think that there's been a pretty significant growth in the recognition of the potential for AI to do a lot of good. And I see that not only among students, but also among teachers, and interestingly, also parents. At the very beginning of the sort of post-GPT launch, I feel like there was a significant divide in different kinds of school districts. So school districts that were heavily resourced, gosh, I feel like that they were majorly under pressure from their parents to get AI into the classroom. and maybe it was a different story for others. But now I don't see that. Now there really is a clamoring to get AI into the classroom because people understand what a very significant difference it can make in their kids' learning experiences. This is also true at the college level. Another important development is that teachers have really embraced AI for their own purposes. And by that, I mean, gosh, I guess it's going to be probably now a majority of teachers that are using AI for lesson planning. This is a task that I don't think anybody maybe 2 years ago would have thought that now, here in 2024, we would be looking at pretty wide adoption of use of large language model-based chatbots to help with curriculum planning. But gosh, we absolutely have that. The most important development, I think, however, is the real recognition about the changes that the students that are today's students in K-12 classrooms are going to be experiencing over the next 10 years as they move into higher education and then out into the job market. So absolutely, there's going to be the expectation that these kids, I sometimes think of as being the AI natives, are going to have to not only be adept at using AI technologies, they're going to have to know how they should not be used, what are the circumstances under which they really should be avoided, how to navigate these kind of complex challenges around sometimes models that behave as we wish them to, and sometimes models that are less than cooperative. And how we're going to adapt to this very rapidly changing landscape. So quite seriously, by the time we finish our discussion this afternoon, from when we started to the end of it, there is going to be a slew of new AI models that maybe we don't know about, and maybe they're not publicly announced, but they're changing what the kinds of power we're going to see in the ability of AI systems to help us with our jobs. And because of that set of changes that are in some ways very difficult to anticipate for the future workforce, but in other ways quite clear, it's really apparent it's going to be a different experience for workers. That means we have to prepare kids to enter that kind of environment. And that makes it really imperative upon us as educators and developers of technology for education to ensure that our kids are getting the best experience and the best, you could think of it as, I think of it as sort of a combination of training and education to interact with AI. So it's a wonderful time to be alive. Our kids are in many ways very, very lucky, and we have to ensure that they've got a productive path in front of them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lester. Also really love the way that you highlighted the importance of making sure we're training our kids in today's classrooms to be able to successfully use AI when they go into their post-secondary life. I've recently heard an AI expert say that AI will not take your job, but someone who effectively knows how to use AI will. And so I think really highlighting that's super important. So thank you very much. Diana, we'd love to hear your perspective on this question as well.
Sure. I mean, I think for me, the thing I always remember and tell people about AI is it's a tool. It's a really powerful tool, but it's just a tool. And so to your point about it's not going to take your job, you should be thinking about AI as an enhancement and not a replacement. So we still need human expertise, and we still need humans to use their expertise in beneficial ways. AI is just a way of enhancing or scaling that expertise. So some things that you might consider when you're choosing a tool or thinking about using AI in a classroom. A big one, of course, is privacy and data security, right? So that can be a big concern, but it also can be mitigated. Some things I might suggest are thinking about, are you or your district paying for the product? Because if you are not the customer, you likely are the product. And that means that a free tool might be using your data to train the model. And depending on what you're putting in, that might be fine. But, be careful about putting in like a student's data, for example, any sort of personally identifiable information, that kind of thing. You just don't want to get yourself into a situation where you might be violating somebody's security or privacy. Some ways you can be careful about that are look for tools that are compliant with COPPA and FERPA. So those are regulations that have to do with security and privacy of children's data and students' data. You can also look for tools that have what's called SOC 2 certification, SOC 2. That has to do with data security and making sure that data is protected and can't be breached and that sort of thing. So just generally picking tools that have like done their diligence and that you know will be secure for you and will protect your and your students' privacy. Another thing folks can think about is sort of what Dr. Lester was talking about, this idea of AI literacy. So not just for your students, but also for you, the educator, right? So making sure that you understand what are the strengths and limitations of these tools, how do they work, how do you use them well, what should you not trust them with, and just being sure that you're an informed user of the tools. And then I think a big one is thinking about if you are wanting to use AI in a classroom with students, give some thought to what are you trying to do? So like, what is the learning objective that you're using AI for here? And why do you think AI would be a good enhancement for it? So, I tell friends and colleagues, like, think of AI as a very knowledgeable, very skilled, but very inexperienced colleague. And how could someone like that be a good teammate for whatever it is that you're trying to do in your classroom? But also consider things like, how old are the students? Is interacting with a chatbot even developmentally appropriate? Or should you be sort of mediating that interaction? Are they old enough to use the tool? A lot of these tools have terms and conditions for 13 and up. So just being really thoughtful about how it's being integrated and always toward some sort of a learning or educational goal, if you're going to be using it directly with students. And then, of course, as Dr. Lester mentioned, there's quite a lot of application for just saving time, getting the busy work out of the way, making it easier for teachers to focus on instruction. So yeah, when I think about how do you reassure teachers or get AI used in the classroom effectively, it's about knowing the tool and using it skillfully.
Thanks so much, Diana. And Dr. Conley, as a superintendent for a county school system in North Carolina, we'd also love to hear your perspective on how you grapple with these concerns and approach the way that you are engaging in discussions around the use of AI.
Thank you. And as Dr. Lester and Diana said, I think it starts first with understanding the tool and understanding that it is just a tool. It will not replace educators nor parents, but it is a tool. As I think about AI and implementation of AI here in Cumberland County, we actually have formed a district AI implementation team, a team that is becoming well versed in the use of the tool and then helping folks across the district with implementation. It reminds me of my days as a student at NC State University. I remember COBOL. I remember Pascal. I remember walking to the computer lab at midnight with a box of toys in my hands, up there on Hillsborough Street. But also, I reflect back to when the calculator was introduced to classrooms. There was a lot of resistance. But imagine now students not being able to use calculators. But we quickly learned. I remember when I was a middle school principal, the TI-85 calculator came in place. Well, we knew very quickly the school had to purchase TI-85 calculators for students to use, but there was an equity issue. Not all parents could afford a TI-85 calculator, so the school had to provide that. Same thing here. We have an equity issue. Not all parents and students may know how to grab hold of this technology and utilize it effectively. So it's upon us as educators to provide them tools to train students in prompt engineering. One of the huge lifts that we have is to train students on prompt engineering. But just like in the Pascal and COBOL days with computers, garbage in, garbage out. So students have got to learn how to write a good prompt. Teachers have to learn how to write a good prompt for the tool. Otherwise, we have an equity issue if the school system is not providing the support. Again, it has huge implications not only for the students, but for the staff, as has been indicated. Paperwork reduction, clinical teaching, helping diagnostic teaching, helping students and teachers understand what the student may have done incorrectly, or what is it they may not have grasped in answering a question. So it's not something that is going away. It's like the calculator. It's not going away. So we have to learn how to embrace it, utilize it to support student learning, to support teacher pedagogy and methodology in the classroom. And how do we move learning into the 22nd century, not 21st century, but we're already 24 years into the 21st century. We need not to be thinking about the 22nd century, a time to truly be innovative.
Thank you so much, Dr. Conley. And now we're going to tackle some questions coming in from our audience members. As a reminder, if you have any questions or comments that you would like to make, please be sure to put those into the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And that way we can ask your question to our resource experts that are part of our panel today. So our first question coming from our Q&A is asking if you can discuss the importance of explainability and interpretability in AI systems, especially when used in educational settings. And a follow-up to that is, how can ensuring transparency in AI outputs help address issues such as incorrect or biased responses provided to our students? And I open that up to any of our panelists to answer that question.
I could jump in here. So interestingly, explainability and transparency, which have sort of taken off in the public discourse, I think, in the last couple of years, have been a standard set of kind of technical problems that have plagued the machine learning research community and in industry since the beginning. So if you have a model that's making decisions, so it's drawing inferences for any application, especially those that are mission critical, like education, you want to understand why it's making the recommendations it's making, or why it's drawing the conclusions that it's drawing, and so forth. And there's a kind of irony that we have here in 2024, which is that the models that are the most performing, the ones that are getting all the attention and all the investment, that kind of model, these large language models based on transformers, are unfortunately what are called inscrutable. These are the most powerful models that have ever been made, and yet we don't understand why they work. It's a kind of astonishing place to find ourselves in, and it's a major technical problem. Now, the question that was asked is, why is this important? Well, gosh, if we can't sort of probe a machine learning model, and let's take the education use case. Suppose that an AI system is making a recommendation that a student continue interacting with a particular unit, or it's recommended that the student advance to the next unit. And the teacher wants to know, that's interesting, but why are you recommending that? And the AI is incapable of providing an explanation. Gosh, that makes it sort of not trustworthy. And trust is a major issue in AI models. So we're going to be living with this for a little while. I think many people expect that this will be a problem that's solved over the next few years, but it's certainly not the case that a solution is just around the corner. And then the final comment is about the issues that were raised by Dr. Conley that also relate to this question, which are issues of equity. So suppose that we don't understand why the AI model is making a particular recommendation. Personally, if I were a teacher in a classroom, or if I were a principal, or if I were a superintendent, I would be very, very reluctant to let that system loose, making, drawing deductions, making decisions that are really going to impact in a very significant way the academic lives of our kids. So we have to take this very seriously. We want to really understand why particular recommendations are being made. And the kind of bottom line is we want to make sure that there are fairness, and when I say fairness, I mean computational fairness, guarantees that can be made about these systems to ensure that they're treating everybody equitably. And this is a very high bar that we're kind of putting in place here, and we'll be grappling with this for a good number of years to come. It's a great question.
Thank you, Dr. Lester. Diana, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I would add a couple of things. One is, to Dr. Lester's point, a lot of these systems are inscrutable, but that doesn't mean that we can't apply some scrutiny anyway. So one thing to think about is, does the tool have the option to override what the AI is doing? So for example, we're building into our systems the ability for a teacher to just recommend, no, I want students to do this lesson, or I want this student to do this lesson. So having room for human expertise in the mix. The other is just, I think this is an opportunity for both adults and our students to get a refresher in just media literacy in general, and sort of being a skeptical consumer of information. So, the AI generates some sort of an output, and you look at that and to evaluate it and say, does that jive with what I understand about the world? What motivation might be backing a claim like this? Where might it have gotten this information from? I should go double check. I'm going to go look at a reliable source and see if that makes sense to me. And I know there are also more and more systems out there like Perplexity that actually cite their sources, which is great. That's good practice in general, but it's also really great to model that for students who are just learning that they should be doing that kind of diligence. So as much as it would be significantly better if they were just always unbiased and factual and all the things, I think it's a great opportunity to teach students like, hey, a lot of the information you encounter in the world might be kind of questionable, and here are some techniques for interrogating that.
Thank you, Diana. In Dr. Conley's comments, and then also when Dr. Lester was answering the question just a moment ago, you both brought up the question of inequities and ensuring that we are providing equitable educational opportunities for all of our students. So I'm wondering if any of our resource experts would be willing to weigh in a little bit to help us better understand how AI can help address educational inequities and ensure that all students have access to high quality educational opportunities.
I'll hop in on this one first. So one thing I will say is that AI and personalized learning more broadly have huge potential to move the needle for students. So we know from kind of the literature, things like Benjamin Bloom's 2 Sigma problem, that personalized learning can really dramatically impact students and their learning outcomes. At Age of Learning, what we've seen in our research is that our personalized learning programs are often impacting the students who need it the most, meaning students who come in with the lowest prior knowledge actually see the most growth, which is great to see. The cool thing about software is that it can be iterated upon and researched and polished, and you can prove that it works. And then you can scale it to as many kids as need it. And so there's the opportunity to provide these really powerful resources to everybody, because once you've gotten it right, it's infinitely scalable. Another thing to think about is what Ken Shelton calls this idea of tequity. And so that's making sure that everybody gets access to these tools. And so that's both literally having access to the software, but also making sure that students both at home and at school have access to things like high quality broadband and devices that can run this software. So I think there are some issues there that we have to work out kind of as a society, but assuming that we can ensure tequity for everybody, the tools are definitely ready to make a big difference.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Conley.
Yeah, Marie, I'll jump in there too, and I totally agree with what Diana has said. And AI has the potential to be a powerful equalizer in education. offering a range of capabilities to support diverse learning needs of our students. For instance, AI can provide tailored explanations of complex mathematical concepts at specific age or grade levels, breaking down challenging material into more easily digestible parts. Additionally, certain AI tools can analyze student work to pinpoint exactly where the mistakes are being made, offering targeted assistance that helps students and staff understand and correct the student errors. This personalized support has potential to be transformative, especially for those who need extra help in mastering difficult subjects.
Thanks so much, Dr. Conley. We have another question from our audience that we'd love to get your perspective on. So what are the most significant challenges schools face when implementing AI technologies, and how can these challenges be overcome? And I open that up for any of our panelists.
Okay, I'll lead off. So I am at a university. I don't claim to have any deep understanding of the educational software market, but I'll say that it is a very, very complicated sales dynamic. So we have this technology that's changing, as we said, very, very rapidly. The actual upside of the technology in short-term, medium-term, long-term is very high. And I'm describing this sort of generically, and not only the underlying AI technologies, the machine learning, natural language processing, and so forth are rapidly changing, but the application layer that we're talking about today, for example, student modeling and explanation generation and pedagogical planning, those are all changing equally fast. So altogether, this makes it really tough to be in procurement. So if your job is to make a decision from a potentially very, very broad menu of choices, how are you going to be doing that? I've worked in the field of AI in education for something like 30 years now, and it would be a very difficult job for me to be given a set of, I don't know, say 20 or 30 offerings, and then make a decision about what's the best package for my district, say if it was a district sale. And the people that are having to make these decisions, they haven't been working in the field for 30 years. And on the other hand, they've got the knowledge of what their district particularly needs. And so that means, just as Dr. Conley mentioned, I was particularly struck by his comment about having an AI implementation team. I think that model is going to work really well. In fact, I think it will be essential. It's just too big of a lift for an individual person to not only develop an understanding of all the technologies, both underlying and the application level, and then all of the considerations of privacy that Diana mentioned, and then that's not even considering all the pricing model. So it's a really, really interesting problem that folks that are going to be making purchasing decisions have in front of them.
Yeah, I will say, just jumping right off of that, Dr. Lester, a school district that I have seen doing a really phenomenal job of that is Linwood Unified here in Southern California. They've been posting all about their process. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we think our guidelines should be. Here's going to be our rules of conduct, all of that. So if you're looking for a model to follow, I would suggest looking up what Linwood is doing. Another thing I would say is once you've got a model, you have to figure out what to use it for. And this comes back to this idea of AI literacy. One of the things I see folks doing a lot is kind of putting themselves, like limiting what they can use the tool for to either this is more sophisticated Google, or please grammar check my text. And you can use it for a lot more than that. At Age of Learning, for example, I use it for data analysis. Like full on, like I need a spreadsheet formula for this, and please find the patterns in this and give me a chart. I have colleagues who use it to check their code or generate pictures to go along with vocabulary words in some of our activities, or hey, I need math problem sets that all follow this set of characteristics. So one thing I think when schools are implementing AI that they need to be thinking about is really think outside the box. How can you use it not just with classrooms, or not just in classrooms with students, but also just, again, how do educators use it to enhance what they're doing and really save their precious time for interacting with students?
Yeah, Marie, I think I would add, to some of the things that have already been said. One of the most significant challenges is protection of student data privacy, as Diana alluded to earlier. But ensuring data privacy is imperative, and schools must rigorously verify that any AI technologies that we adopt meet these compliance standards. This involves vetting of vendors, regular audits, continuous monitoring to ensure that the data is handled securely and responsibly. Another major challenge is the integration of AI technology into existing educational framework or learning management systems without disrupting the learning environment. We got to properly train educators and administrators on how to effectively use AI tools to enhance teaching and learning while being mindful of the ethical considerations. This requires a combination of robust professional development, clear policies and guidelines. We may be able to drop in the chat the link to Cumberland County's policy on AI and a commitment to transparency and collaboration with all stakeholders. By prioritizing data privacy and fostering a well-informed approach to AI adoption, schools can successfully implement these technologies in ways that support educational goals while protecting student rights. But not only in the school system, but we look at it from an instructional standpoint, but even on the business operation side of the house. We have team members on our team that are looking at how can it improve our work in HR, in finance and budget, in data and accountability, analyzing student summative test scores that come back on in the range and in the course test, analyzing that data by subgroup, Black students, white students, Hispanic students, students with IEP, students, all types of subgroup data, students that were taught by beginning teachers, students that were taught by international teachers, students that were taught by seasoned veteran teachers, all that data analysis. So our data and accountability department can utilize AI in their work as well. So not only in the classroom, but throughout the system, all of our departments have got to embrace effectively using AI tools to make us more effective and more efficient.
Thank you all so much for explaining all those key elements of the implementation of AI effectively in classrooms. I'm also curious, as we kind of look at AI tools and the implementation of AI tools, especially in our pre-K-12 systems, how can AI be used to help enhance parental involvement in children's education?
Well, so I think a big one that we've been looking at Age of Learning is translation. So, a significant number of folks are not English as their first language, and it's a lot of different world languages that we want to support. But if you're only ever sending home communications in English, you're leaving a lot of folks out. And so a really simple but powerful use of AI is to make sure that you're translating into the languages that families are using at home so that everybody can be informed and included.
Yeah, Diana, I would agree with that and add that, it can be utilized to enhance parental involvement by providing real-time insight into the children's academic progress and learning needs. For example, AI-driven platforms can offer parents personalized updates on their child's performance, highlight areas where the child may need additional support, and suggest resources or activities to reinforce learning at home. As was indicated, these tools can facilitate more effective communication between parents and teachers by providing data-driven reports and alerts, ensuring that parents are always informed and can actively be involved in their children's education. As Diana said, it can bridge the language gap and accommodate diverse communication preferences by offering multilingual support and customizable communication options. This ensures that all parents, regardless of their background, can stay engaged, connected with their child's educational journey by making information more accessible and interactions more meaningful. AI tools can empower parents to take a more active and informed role in their children's education. Even our parent messages that go home to parents from the district or from the schools, we utilize AI in Cumberland where parents can select a language for that message. When you call the school, we're working to utilize AI where parents can choose a language when they call the school to get support or get an answer to a question. So it's transformative, not only in the classroom, but even on the management and business side of the district.
Thanks so much. Great explanations of how we can really utilize AI to help improve the involvement of parents in our kiddos' educations. So we have time for one final question. So I would love to hear the panel's perspectives on what role should the federal government play in regulating AI use in education? And how can states and local districts align with regulations to create a cohesive strategy, especially considering that we do have several lawmakers and their staffers present on this webinar? Would love to get your feedback on that.
This is a critically important and very time-sensitive question. We have not possibly ever been at sort of the precipice of a family of technologies emerging into the workforce, but also, as I said, every sector of society that have the potential to have the level of impact that AI has. And it is so important to get this right the first time. If we wait for like, say, 3 or 4 years until maybe we understand how the technologies are going to interoperate with school ecosystem, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, or we wait until we kind of have a better understanding about how AI might affect kind of classroom dynamics. And there's a kind of endless set of very important questions that we do want to get answers to. It'll be too late. So we right now have both an opportunity and a need to, as quickly as possible, begin addressing this very fundamental question around AI in education. So the privacy issues that we talked about are really critical. The fairness issues that we talked about are really critical. And the equity issues that we talked about, those are all critical. So AI technologies that are currently kind of being born today have a very centralizing kind of tendency. And by that, I mean, these models are extraordinarily expensive to create. It takes $100 million to create a new large language model. And only a relatively small number of organizations, including federal government, can afford to create these models. And so that means that if we don't do something, if we don't take action in the policy realm, we're going to end up with a system that will be great for potentially a very small number of organizations and maybe less great for the rest of society. And the reason this is time sensitive is we're starting to see, and this is a good thing, but the rapid adoption of AI technologies in school systems. So we really want to act now. Exactly what these policies should look like. That's a great thing for discussion. It's going to take a lot of very thoughtful work to do this by many folks with many kinds of expertise. But we must do it, and we don't want to wait until, let's say, the EU does it. Actually, the EU, they're ahead of where we are in the US now. The last thing I'll mention is that in the United States, we have this state-based education system, which has, lots of advantages, but also it makes it tougher to implement policies at the national level. And we're going to have to really be thoughtful about how, this was part of the question, we integrate kind of federal level policy and state level policy all the way down to the district for AI. So I really appreciate this question being asked, and I hope all the folks in the discussion today will be thinking hard about what they can do about this.
Thanks so much, Dr. Lester. Diana, do you have something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would say, I think it would be challenging for regulation to be focusing on the capabilities of a technology. This is a technology that's evolving really rapidly, and we don't want to always be legislating last year's models. But I think what we can focus on is the effects that the technology has on people. So, for example, an existing framework that's already out there, Evidence for ESSA, evaluates the quality of research into whether programs are actually efficacious. Are they delivering learning outcomes for students? We need things like that. So, okay, great, you're going to put an AI tool into a classroom. You need to provide some sort of an evidence that it's going to benefit students with a minimum of harm. So thinking about what models do we already have and can we sort of ramp those up a bit, I think would be good, and really focusing on the impact that tools have on people rather than their capabilities. One really good model for this is the Federation of American Scientists just did a policy sprint where they brought in experts from across the spectrum to talk about how might we think about regulating AI. And there were a number of proposals generated from that sprint that I think are worth considering.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Well, with that, we do want to thank you again for joining us as panelists and for really driving this incredibly engaging conversation. Before we close today, I do want to ensure that everyone on today's call is aware of our upcoming K-12 webinars. Our next K-12 conversation will be held on Thursday, July 18th at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time, where we will discuss innovations in work-based learning experiences for K-12 students. We're dropping the registration link in the webinar chat, so please be sure to click on that link to register for our upcoming webinar. And we also encourage you to join us for our other upcoming webinars that are listed on the screen. You can register for those webinars by going to the Hunt Institute website and clicking on the webinars page at the top of the screen. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon.